Hi guys, this is Shannon from Reptile Way and welcome back to our channel. We've also got Gimli here, she's going to be helping us out today. And this video is going to be completely dedicated to Essential Bearded Dragon's diet. And you may have noticed it says Australian version. And the reason why that is because there's a lot of American content out there, which is great. However, lots of the foods they do mention we either can't get here in Australia or it's really hard to access. So we're sort of going to address this, and in the video you'll see me flicking back and forth from American table list of foods to an Australian table list of foods, just to sort of cover all bases. But anyway, let's get started. So first off, we're going to start off with this table with safe foods for your bearded dragon, but the Australian version. And you're going to see on the table, we've got it broken down into categories. So there's staples, which you can pretty much put every single day almost. And then you've got your mixes, which you're going to rotate around. And then after that, you've obviously got your treats like fruit. And then you've got your proteins, and you've got your protein, staples and treats. Now the reason why this table is an Australian version, these are just foods you could easily access at your Woolies, IGA, Coles, local markets and fruit and veg shops. So feel free to pause it here, make some notes, screenshot it, do whatever you need to do. This table is just really, really useful if you're going to the shops and you've got all the foods there, and yeah, it just may help you out a little bit. So now I'm going to quickly flick over to the American food list table. And again, just if we've got some viewers from different parts of the world and you can access these types of foods, and that's great. So I'll just pop that up, and again, feel free, pause it, screenshot it, do whatever you need to do. One thing that I did notice that was really, really interesting in this food table, and also I've seen it mentioned in lots of care guide videos, is the mention of prickly pear. And when it comes to prickly pear in quite a few countries like Australia, this particular type of plant is actually extremely invasive, and it's actually illegal to sell, distribute it, or grow it yourself. So again, this is why you've really got to do your research into foods that you can access that are going to be safe in the country you're living. So if you're in Australia, please do not try grow this particular plant. The government does say penalties apply. Now flicking back to the Australian table, you'll see in the staples there's a food mentioned called gai choy, which is just mustard greens. And then in the mixes you'll also see dandelions being mentioned. Now I couldn't find these plants anywhere or seeds anywhere, so for me I've ordered it online and I'm going to try grow it myself. So I'll put the particular website up on the screen that you can purchase these from. But yeah, it might just be a little good project to do to grow certain types of foods for your bearded dragon that you can't access in the shops. Now next up, we're just going to flick over to a 7-day meal plan, and this is just going to give you an idea of what is actually a balanced diet for these guys. And you may notice that this particular 7-day meal plan is for adults, so 12 months and over, and you'll sort of notice there's a starve day in there. Now, this is not being cruel to your bearded dragon. For me personally, I found it beneficial for Gimli, because Gimli is one that needs to sort of cut down on weight a little bit. She does love her food. So for her, starve days are really good. Also, I've heard breeders, the renowned Reptile's website, mention that it's a good practice as it can reduce the chance of obesity in your dragon. Now obviously with this particular meal plan, you don't have to follow it every single week, the same thing every single week. You can go back to that table and swap foods in and out. This meal plan that I've just put up, it just makes it easy if you're a first-time bearded dragon owner, or if you've got a kid who this is their first pet and you really want them to do most of the work. they can just look at this and it just tells them easily what foods they're going to feed their dragon on what days. Now also, when it comes to the age of your bearded dragon, this is going to determine the amount of protein content to plant content. So I'm going to pop this particular image up on the screen for you now, and this just breaks down their age and how much protein they should be having. However, this is just a guide. You may have to adapt it depending on the individual needs of your bearded dragon. So depending on its health, weight, whether it's meeting milestones or not. So for example, if it's actually underweight, you may not want to cut the protein back. You may want to keep that up until it puts on that weight and actually meets those milestones. So again, just take that one with a grain of salt. It is just a rough guide to follow. Another good guide that again talks about the protein to plant content depending on the age is from Reptile. So I'll pop this one up on the screen too. Totally up to you which one you'd follow. They're both really good, but again, make sure your bearded dragon, it's healthy, its weight's going fine, and don't just solely rely on those tables. Now next up, vitamins and supplements. This is so important for these guys' health. And the types of vitamin supplements I use, I'm going to put on the screen. So I actually use a calcium powder and a multivitamin powder that I sprinkle on all of Gimli's salads. And then the calcium powder I will also dust over the bugs on her bug days. And yeah, that's just really good to ensure that they're not going to get any nasty diseases like metabolic bone disease. Super crucial. So I really recommend getting those vitamins, especially when you've got a baby bearded dragon. It's pretty crucial to make sure they're going to develop correctly and hit those developmental milestones. Now another powder that people forget is to actually gut load the bugs you're going to be feeding your bearded dragon. So this is a particular gut loader that I use. It's easy to get from the pet shops that we have in Australia. And what you do, you just sprinkle some of that in the box of crickets or dubia roaches that you've got. They'll feed on that and then they'll be packed full of nutrients for your dragon. Just make sure you feed them that 24 hours before you're going to feed your dragon, just to make sure it's actually sort of gone into them and that nutrients is going to be there. So guys, that gives you a good overview of everything you need to know about the central bearded dragon's diet. And hopefully all that information has helped. Now to finish up with, we're just going to go over some foods that are hot topics of debate, whether it's safe or not safe to feed to your bearded dragon, and also research that I've done in trying to find out as much as I can about the central bearded dragon's wild diet. So we'll get into that. So if you've been Googling foods that are safe for your bearded dragon, you'll probably notice the two foods that pop up the most is spinach and kale. And some people agree that it's safe to feed to your bearded dragon and other people don't. So we're going to start off with spinach. Now the reason why spinach is a hot topic of debate is because it contains something called oxalates. So when your bearded dragon eats spinach, the oxalates in that spinach actually combine with calcium in the bearded dragon's body, which stops that calcium from being absorbed into the dragon's bloodstream. And this can lead to serious conditions like metabolic bone disease or even death if it's really severe. So what some people do recommend if they're going to feed spinach to their bearded dragon, they only do it about once every week to 2 weeks in a very small amount, and you've got to make sure you have your vitamins like calcium powdered sprinkled over the top, and that'll make sure that it's not going to lose too much calcium. Now next up is kale. Now the reason why people may not feed it to their bearded dragon is because it contains something called goitrogens. Now I'm going to put that word up on the screen because I don't know if I said it right, but it can affect your bearded dragon's thyroid. Also, kale does contain a lot of vitamin A, so if you're giving your bearded dragon like a multivitamin or supplements that contains vitamin A, and kale has a lot of vitamin A, it could lead to your bearded dragon getting too much vitamin A, which can have severe consequences too. So just keep that in mind. Again, some people feed their bearded dragon kale once every week to once every 2 weeks, and it's totally fine. For me personally, I don't feed my bearded dragon kale because I don't personally like it, and if I'm just feeding her a small amount, the rest will go to waste. So that's one of the reasons why I don't. And I also don't feed Gimli spinach either. And that's because there are plenty of other food options that I can choose from. And spinach, I'm just a bit concerned on that one. I'm more concerned with spinach than kale. Next up, we're quickly going to talk about their diet in the wild. And I really sort of struggled with this and got slightly annoyed because there is very, very little information on this when it comes to the exact plant species that they eat, the exact insects, the exact vertebrates. Yeah, it was a little bit frustrating. So on most of the descriptions of a bearded dragon's wild diet, it'll generally say, and I'm actually taking this one from the Australian Museum website. Now bear with me, I'm going to look down as I read this so I sort of get this right. But the Australian Museum states that they are omnivorous and feeding on vegetation including fruit and leaves, as well as invertebrates like ants and beetles, and small vertebrates like small lizards that they can catch. So that's the general gist of what you'll find out there. I tried to look up some research papers that went in depth into this diet of the central bearded dragon, and I found there was not a lot of research out there regarding this. I did find one particular paper that I'm going to put up on the screen for you now. And to sum up this particular paper, the findings were that it found about 54.4% of the central bearded dragon's stomach content was plant matter, and 41.5% of the stomach content was of animal matter, and this they're mainly just referring to bugs, insects, that type of thing. And then the most sad bit of all, about 2.3% of their stomach matter was things like grit, thread and plastic. So that's a bit unfortunate and really shows, you know, the world we live in today when it comes to rubbish. Now going more into that animal matter, I'll pop a list of the particular insects and things that they found in the stomach contents of those bearded dragons. However, when I was trying to look through to find out what plant species that were in the stomach contents or that they may have eaten or that was in that area, there was absolutely no information on that. So that was a little bit disappointing with that study. Also with this particular study, there are quite a few limitations. It was a very small study. I'm pretty sure there's only like 14 bearded dragons included in this study. And it was done over a very short time period. So yeah, it's a little bit hard to sort of take this as, yep, complete facts when the sort of population pool that they used of bearded dragons was so small. So I hope in the future that they'll make a bigger study out there with maybe 100+ bearded dragons over extended periods of time. So they'll, you know, do this 1 month, then maybe wait 3 months and do it again at different points of the year. However, this just really emphasizes that we don't really know a lot about the central bearded dragon's wild diet. And because we don't know things like individual plant species, what exactly they eat out in the wild, and their whole array of individual bug species, and even vertebrates like lizards, it can be really hard to accurately say, yep, we know exactly what they should be eating in captivity and we know what a healthy diet is. I think you can only really say that if you know a lot about their wild diet, which we just don't have that information on. However, in saying that, I think we are learning a lot about the bearded dragon diet just through keeping these guys in captivity for many years as pets. Also, really reputable breeders are coming out with some good information. There are research being conducted into captive bearded dragons. So with all that, we are learning a lot. However, I think a really good step would be to learn more about their wild diet. However, again, research costs money, takes time, but hopefully we'll get more of that research out. However, if you follow all the stuff we've mentioned in this video, include important foods, vitamins, have sort of a 7-day meal plan set up, you should be able to raise a happy, healthy bearded dragon. So folks, I really hope this video did help you out today, and thank you so much to our lovely helper Gimli. She's done such an amazing job today. If you did like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and feel free to subscribe for more content coming out, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.